remained between 8 and 11%, and therefore the 6% is an extremely pleasing number. Month on month, two important items contributing to food inflation have fallen. Pulses have fallen by 2% in Jan over December, and vegetables have fallen by 15% in Jan over December. Vegetable prices falling in winter months is on expected lines, but the extent of the fall is very important considering the situation in which the monetary policy is. The expectation, therefore, from the broad market is that the April rate cut is practically in the bag. The additional information I can give is we spoke to Ramesh Chand, the Niti Aayog agriculture expert, and he believes that food inflation is going to be low single digits all the way up until April. And thereafter, of course, we depend on the monsoon forecast. But if that is the case, then the expectation of the April rate cut is well founded. So on inflation, very good numbers. Core inflation at 3.7 is more or less on expected lines. On IIP, the 3.2% for December is a disappointment. Our poll was 3.9%, almost 4. So that is a disappointment. Their consumer non-durables at minus 7.6 is the big disappointment. But capital goods have grown at 10.3%, which is very positive. And that's probably explained by the fact that the government spent like no tomorrow in December. Their capex expenditure increased very
Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18. I'm Parikshit Luthra. We're joining you from Washington, D.C., where Prime Minister Modi will be meeting Donald Trump for the first bilateral meeting with the two leaders after the new administration took over in the United States. Clearly, there are challenges on the trade front, immigration front, and also seeing how the ISET and the defense partnership can continue. I spoke to Rick Rossow, Senior Fellow at Center for Strategic and International Studies here in Washington, D.C. Listen in. Give us a sense of whether we should be expecting a lot from this visit or not.
I think so. Sometimes these visits, you see a lot of announcements of future work streams, creation of working groups, initiatives. This time, I think President Trump wants to see some concrete actions. He's initiating a trade war against the world. India, of course, the U.S. economic relationship is vital. So I think Prime Minister Modi is going to want to put some things on the table to make sure India is not a target of the trade war, unlike even our immediate neighbors in China and others.
Where do you think the pressure will be when it comes to Donald Trump wanting more market access for products in India?
Well, you go back to when Prime Minister Modi first took office a little over 10 years ago in this Make in India program, you saw out of the gates a lot of protections, increased customs duties, local manufacturing rules, even price controls and things like medical devices. And those were very much on the agenda the last time President Trump was in office. And a lot of that hasn't been resolved. You've seen fewer customs duty increases. For instance, this most recent budget, you saw more decreases and increases. But a lot of those aggravations that were there before still kind of remain. And companies that are impacted by that feel they're losing market access, they're certainly going to show up at the White House and petition President Trump to be hard on those issues once again as he was before.
Right. Are we expecting a limited trade deal or maybe a roadmap for a limited trade deal?
It's quite possible. I mean, the White House has indicated that India will be prioritized as a relationship among leaders ahead of almost any other country in the world. President Trump has said that trade deals with partners or small groups are possible and on the table. Now, last time President Trump was in office, they were talking about a trade deal, but I'm always quick to remind folks, it was really a cessation of hostilities rather than a prospective trade agreement with customs duty reductions and things. It was resolving some pain points rather than something aspirational. But I do think you're right. I mean, they might be looking for a home run or a sixer this time. A way to resolve a lot of the little issues is put something big on the table like a trade agreement. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's on the agenda.
Right. Now, also about issues such as GE 414 engines. We believe that the US is asking for a higher price per engine now. Do you think there could be some issues regarding that, or those deals also the larger ISET partnership will continue?
I think that's going to be a big problem. I think a lot of these areas we're talking about tech transfer to help India manufacture and grow and bloom. That's the kind of thing that I don't think President Trump's going to have as much time and patience for. So I think some of these areas on ISET, on transfer of technology, those are difficult. As you saw in the joint statement when Prime Minister Modi came to the White House a couple of summers ago, this announcement of U.S. outbound manufacturing investment that was cheered on by the White House, those kind of things, I think a little bit tougher, I think, for President Trump to hack. He's going to want to see American exports straight rather than helping India learn to manufacture and build.
Right. My final question to you would be, as far as the business environment in US goes, what do you think US CEOs would be expecting from the US-India business partnership?
Well, at the end of the day, India, during Trump's term in office, India will leap over both Germany and Japan to be the third largest economy in the world. On a per capita basis, certainly it's less, but writ large as an economy, it's huge. So an amazingly large market, a growing population, one where it's very comfortable with American products and services. So if you're an American CEO and you're thinking about global growth, India has got to be near the top of the agenda. But a lot of what's going to make it work are the reforms India has to do itself. It's nothing that's going to be on the table for a president and prime minister. You've got to see more state governments, improving electricity, water, things like that. So a lot of the nuts and bolts aren't going to be there at the White House. It's things that India has to grapple with itself, just like the United States does with a lot of our own issues.
All right. Thanks very much for speaking to us, Rick. Fantastic catching up with you here in Washington. When Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump meet here in Washington, D.C., the conversation on immigration is bound to be a difficult one. India is likely to raise concerns over how recently in a deportation flight, Indians were restrained using chains and handcuffs. We would definitely be asking for more humane treatment for Indian nationals. How will this go and what will Donald Trump ask for in return? Those are big questions. I spoke to Michael Kugelman, director of the South Asia program at the Wilson Center. Listen in. Michael, thank you for joining us. What does Prime Minister Modi expect from this trip and what can we realistically achieve?
Well, I think, first off, he's looking to reassert his friendship with President Trump and to reassert partnership between these two countries. I think it's pretty significant that Prime Minister Modi will be just the fourth foreign leader to meet with President Trump since he took office. I think that it says something about how important this administration views the relationship with India. And, this is going to be a bit of an unusual meeting in the sense that these are early days for the administration. A number of key posts in this administration focused on India have not yet been filled. So I don't think that we should expect major substantive discussions and splashy deals, but I think that there will be a lot of opportunities for the Prime Minister with President Trump and other senior officials that he meets with to chart out priorities for the relationship. But I do think that we will see the transactional side of the strategic partnership too. I suspect that there will be some discussion and some asks, so to speak, from President Trump and perhaps from Prime Minister Modi on a variety of things, whether you're talking about trade or energy or whatever the case.
Let's talk about trade. We have a $35 billion trade surplus with the US. What could be the immediate asks from the US side?
So I don't expect any immediate specific asks. I think that the Indian government has been very savvy in terms of how it's approached the administration on the issue of trade and tariffs. India has indeed reduced some tariffs in recent days. It had signaled publicly that it was willing to do that. And so I think that makes it less likely that you're going to have a sharp demand from Trump. But I do think that, as you say, this trade deficit is very high and it's not in America's favor. I think that there might be a bit of a push from President Trump to do more. But, I see this as an opportunity for India, quite frankly. I think that Prime Minister Modi might have an opportunity to make a pitch to President Trump for some type of negotiation toward an agreement, not an FTA, but some type of economic partnership accord that could enable the two sides to reduce tariffs.
Right. And on the energy partnership, are you expecting the U.S. to press India to buy more LNG, buy more crude oil?
Well, just a few years ago, in 2021, India was actually the top destination for U.S. oil exports. Things, of course, changed with global oil markets when you had the war in Ukraine begin, and that, of course, prompted India to start importing more oil, cheap oil from Russia. So I think that, President Trump will ask India to buy more energy. This is an ask he's making of many countries. He wants countries to buy American, particularly close allies and partners like India. But I think that for India, the challenge will be the price point, right? I mean, I think India would be receptive to acquiring more American oil, LNG, but the price point has to be right, given how cheap that Russian energy is. But here, I think that perhaps India, that Prime Minister Modi might make an ask on the energy front as well, in terms of nuclear energy. We know that India just announced a new nuclear energy mission, and I think that New Delhi might see this as a useful fuel to make a pitch to the Trump administration to invest in. It's not solar power, it's not wind power, which might not be attractive to the administration, but it's a cleaner fuel than fossil fuels. And as India moves toward its goals of reducing carbon emissions, I think that might be a useful area to focus on.
Any irritants in the relationship?
Certainly, I think that we could see some, and I think in the most immediate term, the issue of immigration could be that case. You know, again, New Delhi has signaled its willingness to work with the administration on this issue, and of course, it's already taken back just over 100 deportees that arrived last week. But you know, this is going to be a very difficult issue. It's not clear exactly how many undocumented Indians there are in the U.S. Some estimates indicate more than 700,000. And if that's true, that's a very large number. And I think it'll be a very delicate negotiation for India to carry off with the U.S. as to how that'll work, how many it takes back. I don't necessarily think that Modi's visit with Trump this time will get into big details on that, but it'll have to be discussed because this is a big priority for the Trump administration.
Michael, help us understand. On one hand, the US has told us that there are 18,000 Indians staying illegally in the US which have to be taken back. At the same time, there are reports which say that there are 7.5 lakh or 750,000 Indians staying illegally in America. So how is one coming to that number, and what category of Indian nationals fall in this 7.5 lakh bracket?
Right, so ultimately I'm not sure. I mean, I do know that larger estimate had been provided by Pew, which is a very credible entity when this comes to play. And I think that lower figure might be the figure that the administration is targeting for the Indian government to focus on in terms of taking them back. But ultimately, I don't know. But this is this is going to be an issue, and even the best relationships, the closest partnerships, are going to have some bones of contention. And I think that this will be one of them. Though I think it is encouraging that in the early days of the Trump administration, New Delhi has signaled publicly that it wants to work with the administration on making sure this does not become a tension point.
Right. India is very concerned about the manner in which Indians were treated in that deportation flight, restraints on their hands and legs. Do you think if this is taken up at the highest level, will the US make a concession for India?
I mean, this is the type of thing that it might come up during Modi's visit. Indeed, I think it's quite significant that you did have at least one Indian official raise the issue, raise this concern, gently, diplomatically, about the treatment of the Indians on their return home. But I don't think that either side wants this to become a big tension point. So, I mean, Trump is, of course, a transactional leader. We hear that all the time. And, if he hears a concern from the Indian side, he might be willing to address it, but might ask for something in return. There's always that possibility.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for speaking to us, putting the visit into context. And clearly, the immigration issue will be a delicate and sensitive one when the two leaders meet. Thanks so much. On that note, we take a short break, but don't go anywhere. A conversation with Rich McCormick, Congressman and co-chair of the India Caucus here in United States. What are the big expectations from the India-US relationship with the Republican administration in power in the United States? Joining us right now is Congressman Rich McCormick, who is the co-chair of the India Caucus. Mr. McCormick, thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. India enjoys a trade surplus with the United States that is to the tune of around $35 billion. What's the expectation on the trade front? Is there appetite for a full free trade agreement with India, a limited trade deal, and how would you expect India to reduce the trade deficit?
So I'm a free trade guy. You have a $27 trillion economy in the United States. You have less than 5 in India. So it's not fair to assume that India is going to buy the same amount that we're going to consume based on also what you're producing. Is it something of value that we want to purchase? As long as India is not putting unfair tariffs on America, we shouldn't do the same to you. Open, fair agreement. We're not going to have equal trade with everybody. That's okay. As long as there's not unfair trade practices that are involved. That's my personal opinion. Now, President Trump may see that a little bit different. I hope not, because I think when you start putting tariffs on it, especially if India doesn't have unfair tariffs, then there should be no reason for that. But I think the expectation is just to have fairness, and I think President Trump's been very careful not to cater to any kind of negative talk towards Prime Minister Modi. I think he understands the importance of that relationship and has enjoyed that relationship to this point.
You spoke about defense sales to India, how you would like to see more defense purchases being made by the Indian government. Now, we had a very crucial deal which we had signed with the previous administration that was for GE 414 engines to be manufactured in India with an Indian public entity called HAL. What we hear is that price negotiations are on currently. And somewhere the US administration is now seeking a higher price per engine. So those price negotiations are yet to be concluded. What's your view? Will such a deal go through, or do you think the terms will be revised?
Well, when you say higher price, I think you mean we want a better price, which means probably a lower price. And that's what all businesses do. It doesn't matter if it's foreign or domestic, trying to find the best price point for or something that's been bid on. The bidding process in military sales has been very convoluted and not very efficient. And quite frankly, the way that we've gone in these legacy systems have kind of hamstrung us into the future when we develop technologies every year that metamorphize how we fight war in the future, whether it be through drones, supersonic technology, space satellites, crypto, all these things that are really going to come into the modern battlefield and increasing the kill chain. In other words, our ability to put death down range very efficiently because we only have so many resources. We're seeing right now live in Ukraine what works and what doesn't work on navigation systems, communications, weapon systems, countermeasures. It's fascinating. But the legacy systems that go 10 years of R&D, 10 years of incorporation, 10 years of sustainment, those years are going to be gone in the near future. So engines aside, I think India has proven that they're very good at technologies, at advancing technology. To put a spaceship on the dark side of the moon for less than $100 million, are you kidding me? We never see that in America, and that's the future. When they can prove it, they can do it better, faster, more cheaply. That's a product that everybody's going to consume, and you can compete with China and everybody else around the world market. And India's proven that they're very good at that.
Right. Now, coming back to trade fairness, are there any areas that the India Caucus is hoping and expects India to lower tariff barriers in?
I think anything that's competitive with China, who since they've been a member of the World Trade Organization, has basically cheated their way to the top. They've tripled their economy with the Made in China initiative. But they've also been taken to court, I think, some 27 times by the United States, lost every single battle, and then just gets better at cheating. They're basically pillaging people in Africa and other countries around the nation and printing money, not having any accountability. Their central banking system is corrupt. Their economy is staggering right now, and I think they're going to be in big trouble as their population continues a dramatic decline. You'll see the rise of India. And we'll be able to hopefully turn to a country that's very friendly to produce similar products that China right now has the corner on. And they've done it through cornering the market through government supplements to businesses, picking winners and losers, and really doing unfair trade things. I think that India does it much better and can do it on the same price point. And I think anytime we can involve a favorable nation over a country that's openly defying us and going against the things that we think are important for a democracy going forward, I think we should always marry up with India where we can.
So, make America great again, America first. How will it align with self-reliant India. Prime Minister Modi has a vision of self-reliance in manufacturing. Can these two visions of President Trump and Prime Minister Modi be aligned?
Of course. Like I said, we already have things we rely on, whether it be TSMC in Taiwan on chip making, on PPA, drugs, things that are produced in China, different things that China produces on mass or cheaply. India could definitely supplant them in that. We can give them most favored nation status when it comes to trade. Make sure that when we give incentives, that it's towards businesses that marry up with countries that are more aligned with our thought process. We know that the Arunachal Pradesh region of India, there's a dispute between China and India, making sure that we're very clear about who our friends and who our enemies are. We can see this in Palestine, we can see this in Ukraine, we can see this wherever our interests are served, and India can be a good friend. We should reach out and sustain that. And when it comes to production, when it comes to things that just simply aren't going to be produced in the United States anymore unless there's an absolute need. Once again, you want to have things that are especially strategically important to us, medicines, PPE, things that can be produced in other countries cheaply, but also from a friendly nation status. Somebody's not going to turn on us on a dime. That's where India really comes in as a valued strategic partner.
Right. On H-1B, now there has been a bit of concern that there will be a clampdown on the H-1B program. What's your sense and recommendation?
My recommendation is we actually expand it. If you look at my bill that I put in, I believe it's HR 6542. I'm sure it'll be redesignated this Congress, but it actually gets rid of that 7% cap. That people who have been waiting for 20 years to become citizens, they're already producing jobs, they're producing tax revenue, they're the best kind of citizen in the United States.
President Trump's priority has been to do away with illegal immigration.
Yes.
He's in talks with India to deport 18,000 Indians staying illegally in the U.S. Some worry that the numbers could be much larger, as much as 750,000. Is that a number that you're going by and recommending that they should be deported to India?
No, and here, once again, we're supposed to be starting with criminals. We have 2 million people that came into this country illegally, came here illegally, and avoided actually capture, and they're not here on asylum, they just got here. We start with those people. We don't eliminate people who are creating jobs, who are getting taxed, who came here legally and then ran out because the process failed them, which we created. We should be looking to also create a way that there's a two-way door. So if you go back, you say, okay, mea culpa, I'm going back on my own, but I would love to have first rights to get here legally and actually continue to contribute to the American society. That's what I want to reinforce. I want this to be a nation of laws, but I also want laws that make sense for America. And we need more people in hotels. We need more people in healthcare. We need more people in IT. We need more people in the military. We need more people in agriculture. We need more people because we have an expanding community and economy that's $27 trillion. Most people can't fathom that. 27 trillion. That's $10 trillion more than China. That's 20 trillion more than most any other economy besides China, and that's 7 trillion more than all of Europe combined. That's a big economy that has to be sustained by manpower, and we need certain people every year, and we have to right-size our legal immigration to benefit the United States, and that benefits the whole world, because quite frankly, we're the most philanthropic, generous nation that helps people all over the world. We can't do that if we don't have a strong economy.
My final question would be, which would be the 2 or 3 priority points that you would lay out in the relationship, which you feel are currently irritants as per the Trump administration vis-a-vis India and places that need immediate attention?
Okay. I truly want to have free trade. I want to have no bias between our nations when it comes to trade. I think that has always worked for both of us. We get products, you get products. We don't inhibit each other. That's the best system for trade. When it comes to military alliance and stuff like that, I actually would like to see some treaties into the future that actually bind us close. Because right now we're friends, but we're not allies. I want to have someone right who says, you know what? If you serve our best interests, we're going to be your allies for forever. We'll be family. That if you're attacked, we're attacked. That's the way we look at it because we align with you that closely. You're that important to the strategic importance of that area, which is 70% of the world's population, 70% of the world's wealth, 70% of the militaries that exist in that area. That's what matters. And to pay attention to that, to strengthen our ties in the future in every way we can. Not politically, militarily, economically. the closer we tie each other together, the better we're going to be off, because I think it benefits both countries dramatically. And I'd love to see India become the second largest economy in the world. I think it's going to take time, but I think they do it right rather than cutting corners.
And buying more energy, including LNG from the U.S.
I would love to see that, especially. I don't think Russia is a good partner. I know it's cheap, because I know they're struggling to sell their stuff, because the rest of the world is saying no. But to have India buy Russian products and then resell it to Europe is just disingenuous. It's disingenuous of Europe as much as it is of India. But it's funding a war that's unjust. And we are moral people. And I'm going to speak to the Indian people just for a second, because you are a moral people. I know this for a fact. I've eaten dinner. I've had friends I consider family. We're moral people. We don't want to see a country invade. You don't want to see India invaded by China and say, no, it's legitimately ours. And you know it's not. You know that Ukraine voted 90% to leave the USSR a long time ago. Soviet Union agreed to it, signed a contract, said we'll defend you if you're attacked, and then attacked. That's not in good faith. We know this is killing hundreds of thousands of people. Children are being kidnapped, thousands. Nobody in India should think that's okay. We shouldn't be supporting it economically, including Prime Minister Modi. I challenge you to do the right thing.
That's all we had time for on this special broadcast from Washington, D.C. Keep tuning in to CNBC TV 18 for more news and updates.